Good morning. This is the Ramblings of an Indisciplined Mind podcast for Wednesday, November 30th, 2016. And it is the last day of NaNoWriMo. Something I'm actually pretty happy about. What I thought I'd talk about today is I downloaded a new game. I was looking for what's new and happening out there in Android game land, since Wednesday is video game day. And I came across this game called Time Turner. And it's actually a lot of fun. You know, there's supposed to be some sort of a little love story involved in it. I haven't gotten really deep enough to get too deep into that. But the basic is you're controlling a little character that's like has a block for a body and a smaller block on top for a head, and you moving him through these little puzzles, and he kind of walks by his lower block, kind of rotating. And in these puzzles, there are buttons that you have to put something on, like yourself, and that will cause platforms to raise or lower, typically. Sometimes there'll be a platform that's kind of like riding a laser beam that'll move from one place to another, and buttons control those, can make them move from point A to point B. And then there are these little smaller cubes that kind of hover in place, and they are, when your character touches one of those, that causes a rewind. And then what happens is, so everything you did from the start of the level until you touch one of these rewind points, I don't know if that's what they're actually calling it, but that's, I guess, what I'll call it. But once you touch that rewind point, then you get this nice little rewind effect and a rewind sound, and the puzzle is reset. But now your character is still standing where they touched the rewind point icon. It is now gone. And there is a copy of you that is doing everything that you did before you touched rewind points. It was like you're recording your movements. And then when you touch the rewind point, at that point, you're like, okay, well, let that run. And so all of these puzzles, you have to do it with one or more versions of yourself. So it's very much like, some of the stuff I did in the Borrowed Time books, where I would have Ness would, go back 5 minutes so that there were two of him to take on Glenn or whatever. Only in this case, you've got to work this puzzle of your ultimate goal is always to get to this one part of the puzzle that is the end part. And sometimes you have to, all the puzzles require you to, use multiple copies of yourself to get this done. Sometimes you have to get a block pushed to a certain place, and sometimes from where you're starting off, you can't push it there. It requires interaction, cooperation between your past self and your current self. So you really got to be kind of thinking of, okay, so here's your first time, for your first turn, you got to be thinking, okay, so here's the ultimate solution, but now I've got to stand on this button, and maybe I've got to wait a little bit before I stand on it, or I need to stand on it for so long so that the second copy of myself has time to do whatever they have to do to complete the puzzle. If your two copies touch, then they both destroy, and you got to start over. So it's an intriguing little game. Obviously the name stood out to me because it is the name of a time travel device used in the Harry Potter series, and so that did kind of piqued my interest. And plus it's time, so why not? And it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of fun. I'm up to levels now where there's 2 rewind points. So you're using, there's at the end as you're figuring it out, there's 3 copies. But to kind of give you a sense of the gameplay of this, there's one level I did that was actually pretty cool, where you started off on this island, and you're kind of on these little blocky, they're not really islands, they're kind of raised up from the floor, but they kind of look like islands because the floor is kind of dark. So you start off on this one platform, I guess I'll say, and there's a button there. And there are 2 of these laser beams that are extending out from that platform, and they've got 2 of these moving platforms. And so you're on this platform. There's another platform below or further, kind of below you, and one off to the right. And so you get the laser beam. So when you start off, the moving platform is on the platform that you're at, and then the one on the right's got one of these moving platforms over at it, and there's a button there. And when you step on the button, that causes the moving platform that's currently next to your island to slide down to the one that's below you, and the one that's over to the one on the right to slide over to your platform. And on the one on the right, there is a block, and sometimes you've got to move these blocks. And so like on that bottom platform, there's a button there that you can't reach. It's like down 1 step, and it's too big a step for your character to jump down there. So you've got to push the block down there. And so it's interesting because you have to, your first go around, you have to give your double time to get on. You have to step on the button so the moving platform comes over from the right. You got to give your double time to get on it, because he's starting off at a different place on that same platform. And then you have to get off the button, and the button does have some buttons are immediate, you get off of it and it undoes whatever it does, and some buttons have like a 3-second delay. This one's a bit of a delay. And then the thing slides back over to the right platform. You have to give your future self enough time to get that block on the platform, push the block on the platform and get it on the platform themselves, the moving platform. And then you have to get back on the block, on the button, and that slides it back over. And you got to give your future self time to get the block off the button. I'm saying this bad. Get the block off the moving platform and get himself off the moving platform before you step off. And actually what you have to do is you have to, when he's getting ready to come over from the right, you have to step off, and you get the 3-second delay. You have to get on the moving platform that's going to take you down to the bottom platform. You have to go down and you have to get in this one corner and wait. So then your future self has got to get his stuff off of the platform that's gonna go back to the right platform and get himself off before that 3-second timer gets done. So you've kind of got a lot happening there in that 1 to 3 seconds with your kind of your current self and what your future self is going to do. And then he's got to get the block on once that timer runs out, and the right block goes back to the right and the bottom block comes back up to your platform. You got to push your block onto that moving platform and then hit that button and get on the platform so that you can get down to the bottom platform. And then you've got to, and then it's kind of interesting. You got to do this little choreography in that your future self pushes the block down so it's next to your current self, and then your current self has got to push it over and then get out of the way, and then future self can push it down onto the button, and then you open up another pathway that leads you to home. So you got to think in in, different levels of moves, in that, my first time through, I can accomplish this. My second time through, I need to accomplish this. And then, like, I'm working now on puzzles that are the third time through. You got three different selves to deal with. And it gets more complicated as based on the layout of the puzzles, and the fact that you got to deal with three copies of yourself that cannot touch. So yeah, it's interesting. It's called Time Turner, 2 words. But yeah, check it out. It's kind of fun. The other thing in gaming news, I'm kind of feeling like with NaNoWriMo winding down, and I've got a bunch of downtime coming up because I've got like a week and a half at the end of the month. I'm kind of feeling like it might be time I might take another stab at finishing Tomb Raider and whatnot, but I'm also kind of feeling like it's time to pick up a new game, and I'm kind of leaning toward Fallout New Vegas. I kind of want something, I don't mind a little combat, but I also kind of want something where I can do some exploring and whatnot. There's a lot of that in the Fallout games, and that's kind of the most latest one that I can get on the 360. So I'm thinking I might pick that up, because I think that's pretty cheap these days. I think I can get it for like $10 or less at GameStop. So I am thinking about doing that thing. But that's really all I got to talk about for today. I guess I will let that be that, and I will be talking to you tomorrow. So, be seeing you.